So once you're in, which could take a little bit, I know that there's a couple different things that you have to navigate. Go ahead and go to the CIHS community channel. That will likely be the first channel that you will see, and that's how Slack is divided.
Pray for me that I don't get a really bad punishment.
And then I'm going to make sure everyone is invited to CIHS staff, which I think I already did, but if you don't see the CIHS staff channel, let me know.
Hey, John, can I ask a question really quick?
Oh, yeah.
How do, like, I saw some kids run here. How do kids get, like, are they automatically invited when they get their email, or is this like something like classes will invite kids to?
Yeah, you as a teacher can invite students. If they already have an account, then you need to invite them to any private channels that you create. So I'll show you how to do that. I think I've added all of you guys to the CIHS staff channel. So go ahead and post to this channel. If you do not have the invitation link, let me know. I'll send you the invitation link. Hey.
Hey there. Thanks. Just found the link.
So Slack can be used for good and for evil. It does have the capability to send pictures, GIFs, back and forth. Again, if you don't have the invitation link, just let me know. I'll send it to you on the Zoom chat. Once you're in, go ahead and post to the Slack channel CIHS staff. And if you can't get there, let me know.
Hey, John, I just got here. I'm sorry, I didn't know what was going on.
So I'm sending you the Slack invitation link, and we're all getting on Slack and then going to the CIHS staff channel that you can see I've shared with you.
Never done anything like this before. She gathered Cody, Alo, Sandy, and
So while folks are logging in and navigating, there's a few things that you can do. One of them is if you hit the slash, the /, then you see a bunch of options. One of the things is that it is linked with Giphy. It's linked with Google Calendar. It's also linked with Zoom and Trello, if that is something that you use for organization. All right, so far I see Amanda, Sarah, Tom, Allison. Looks like Amir's in. And the one thing that Jason and I found to be really helpful this week to do was we showed a movie over the last 2 class periods. And we had the students watch the movie on their own, but then we had them feeding back over Slack. So we had this ongoing conversation over Slack about what was going on in the movie. That way they didn't have to be on Zoom at the same time, and they could use Slack. You can use Slack on your phone. It's got a really good app. And so the kid could be watching the movie on a device and then on a separate device be communicating on Slack, or kind of multitask on the same device if that's what they wanted to do. But it allowed us to continue talking to them without having them have the incredible bandwidth drain that Zoom is. Also, if you'll notice, you can scroll backwards through the Slack channel in order to be able to see previous messages, in order to be able to catch up with, things that have been happening, conversations that have been happening. And that way, it's kind of like email in that you can go back and you can search for things, but it's presented in a little bit easier format to navigate than email. And it's kind of like having a group email where you don't have the heaviness of that email coming through every single time. You can regulate when you need to see Slack, and you can easily scroll through the messages. So it is a way to foster communication and to really boil it down to just the most necessary communications. Hi, Molly. Hi, Jeremy. Hi, Deli. Some Slack verification emails go to your spam or junk or other folders. I know a few other folks on here have used Slack before. What have you used it before? What have you used it for? What are some advantages? Go ahead, Allison. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Sorry. So
No, I just got back in the meeting.
Oh, okay. So Amanda, what did TFA use it for?
So when we were onboarding, and there was just a bunch of different communication, and basically the idea was having a platform that was less formal than email, where it doesn't need to be a proper, like, hope you're doing well every time you have something that you are trying to communicate. And it also enabled like a group chat type thing, like a kind of group chat board between the core members. So it was useful for that. And having the different threads to kind of organize, like what's official, what's random, what's like, et cetera, was also fairly useful, so that you can hop onto like the random one or onto like, hey, are you looking for an apartment one, without, but it wouldn't take away from the stream for like official stuff. So it was kind of nice that it was organized in that way, where it's pretty easy to find what you're looking for.
Awesome, thank you. So let me show you around some of the features. First of all, over there by channels on the left-hand side, we see that there are hashtags and there are locks. The hashtags refer to channels that are public to anybody in this workspace. So this is the Campus International Workspace. So CIHS Community, Random, Reflections, and Suggestions are all public channels. And then there are private channels. You will only see private channels that you are a member of, including any private channels that you create. So you all are a member of the CIHS staff private channel. I have created different private channels for my classes and also for the volunteers who work with me with computer science, so that we have a channel just among the three of us, the 2 volunteers and me. And we also have channels for each of the classes. So for example, ESS, this is what the ESS channel looks like, because this is what we were doing today with the movie. And so students were giving their feedback and were following along as the movie was going. So again, when you get to the Slack page, if you go to CIHS staff, you should be able to submit a message. And so there's lots of ways you can interact. You can hover over the message and give a reaction. You can also, have multiple reactions. You can tag people just like modern social media, right? So I could tag Allison in something. You can send direct messages. So down here, a couple folks have sent me, or there are direct messages that have come through. And so these direct messages, they don't go to anyone else. They just go to you directly between that person. Awesome. In order to create a private channel for your class, next to channels, you click the plus, and you would click create a channel. And we could, there's some just suggestions here of what we could make. But if we wanted to make a channel for all the music students, we do hashtag music, and then we can put a description. And if you want it to be private, which you probably do, that way that random students, won't just get on there, then make sure you click make private. That's probably the most important thing you can do. So then you click create and you've got a channel. It's really straightforward. I think other than threads, that's mostly it as to how to use Slack. So when we talk about threads, you can branch conversations off into something that are called threads. So if I wanted to start a thread about Jeremy's I'm in, may the 4th be with you all, and I just want to post something in this conversation just about his one comment, and so I reply with, the at crashing into the ground. This is not posted as we see to the main channel, although you can see it's a reply, and I can click on this reply and see it. And it doesn't interrupt the flow of the whole chat, but it allows us to have a little side conversation. And then you can see how many replies are there. If there's like 20 replies, then that might be an interesting side conversation. You can also post files. So we can do that from the thread, or we can do that from the main channel. It's linked to Google Drive. So you can post files from Google Drive, post files from OneDrive, post files from your computer. And then you can also link things. You can make things bold, italic, or strike through. And I forget the Shift, okay. So some general formatting as well. Any questions? So alerts, you can sign up for alerts. That's a great question. So you can set your own workspace settings. You can also change notifications. So what I did is I clicked up here where it said my name. I can pause notifications on the computer. I can pause them for a certain amount of time. I can set myself to away so I won't get notifications. And then I can also change what I get notifications about. If you have the app on your phone, then you have different notifications that you can get on your phone, but you can get all your messages also going to your phone. Amanda, was that a suggestion or was that a question about preventing trolling?
Question.
So yeah, trolling and bullying are my top two concerns about Slack, right? So obviously with direct messages involved, then it allows kids to directly message each other, which, you know, there's about 1,000 different ways kids can directly message each other. All I can see are the direct messages that I send directly to people or people send directly to me. It's easy enough to moderate communities, especially if we have a minimum number of public channels. And then for private channels, the idea is that the person who makes the private channel is the person who's responsible for that private channel. There is no way that I know to prevent certain people from making private channels. And so as with all other social media, this requires vigilance and it requires, you know, making sure that the norms of the community are respected. Other questions? All right. So I hope this is something that in the future we can make use of and that in your classes you make use of, because it is really powerful and it's something that's used in a lot of corporations. So the more that kids are used to communicating in different formats and in different ways, especially ways that a lot of modern corporations are communicating, I think it really sets them up if they can, you know, be in an interview and they're asked, hey, you know, what kinds of ways do you communicate? And they can talk about Slack. I think it's pretty cool professional item to put on the resume.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
We're, just so you guys are all aware, we're going to actually roll this out with the parents because the parent group is trying to do it. So as you get, like, for next year, the hope is that we'll get more parents on here and kind of using it.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks. All right. So I wanted to head back to Classroom.
Hey, Dutton, can you show how to create a channel on Slack really quick again?
Yep. So over here on the left-hand side, next to channels, there's this plus, and you're going to create a channel. This is the channel name. Can't have spaces, but you can have underscores. Make sure you make it private. Go ahead.
There are already kids like on here. Am I able to just join them, or would I have to send them an email with this?
So great question. Once you've created the class, there are a lot of kids who are on here. Not everyone, obviously. But you can click on where it has the little person logo. And that'll give you a member list. And that's where you can add people. And this is for adding people who are already members or for adding actual email addresses. So if I wanted to add a student, I
Okay.
could do this and I could click add and it would send them an invitation.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
is there a way to add like all the students from your Google Classroom just automatically instead of like manually entering their emails?
It's a good question.
Or a link that you can send to them so that, I don't know, like a mass link that you could put on Google Classroom that they just, I was thinking the same thing to go, like
So
Yeah.
the link,
adding 70 names is.
oh yeah, the invitation link that I sent you guys is the invitation link that you can use. I don't remember if you guys can actually see this with the screen I just went through, the invite people to Campus International High School. There is this link about adding from Google Directory, so I think that's something that Amir or I could do where we could automate that. There's also this add many at once where you could copy and paste a bunch of email addresses. You could do the same thing for a particular channel where you could copy and paste a bunch of email addresses all at the same time. The easiest way to get a list of email addresses from Google Classroom from your class, I will show you in a minute how to get that list because I had that in mind to do already. But that would be the easiest way I would know would be to grab just the list of emails. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So if we go to Google Classroom and you go to people, you can actually select all the students, click on actions, and then email. It'll bring up Gmail with a blank email, and everyone is in the BCC field. So now we have all these emails, and you can actually select all, which is Control A on an Apple. It's Apple A. So I've just selected all of these. I can copy it to the clipboard and I can paste it into Slack, or I can paste it if I just want a list of email addresses. That is the foolproof way of getting a list of students' email addresses. I haven't tried this before, but I wonder if you could actually send an email to yourself. No, okay. That's really the best way to do it. Last week, there were a couple questions about how to add a bunch of students all at once to Google Classroom. So if you have a list of email addresses, for example, the class of 2024, that I have linked from the Google Classroom PD right here. So this class of 2024 sheet, all of these email addresses are the email addresses of the potential incoming ninth graders. What you can do is you can just select that whole list, copy it, and then if you want to add that list of students to your class, you can go ahead and paste that list. Oh, never mind. I'm going to fix that. I'll give you a list. I think it actually started to figure it out. That it was a list and not just one. Yeah. So I think that will work. If not, I can also generate a list for you. But that should be the easiest way to add everyone to the Google Classroom that has the assignment for incoming ninth graders. If you just copy and paste that list from the class of 2024 Google Sheet into invite students, hey, look, it worked. And all of these students are about to be added. I'm not going to do that, but that's what you can do for your Google class for the incoming ninth graders. Questions about that? Okay. The last thing with Google Classroom that folks were asking about was how to add a student that you have access to so that you can see what your class looks like from their account, from the student side of things. So we have a student called Test Student, very creatively named. You can add yourself as a parent if you would like to. I added myself as a parent so I could see what parent notifications looked like as well. But Test Student is a very, very secure account. The username is teststudent at campusinternationalschool.org, and the password is teststudent, capital T, capital S. Nobody would ever be able to guess that. I don't think it's going to be a problem because whatever, it gives you access to a class and you might be able to do more work. But that is the test account. I have it added to all of my classes so that I can see what it looks like from student perspective. And like I said, I also added myself as a parent so that I can see what the parent notifications look like. Questions about Test Student? All right. Any general questions about Google Classroom?
I have a question, John. With quizzes, Google Classroom quizzes.
Yeah.
Can you show us again how to? Because I created a quiz, I put it out there, and I had a few turned in. Can you show us again how to grade and then like return the graded quiz to the student?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so I just posted this quiz. Right now, there's nothing in here, so let's edit it real quick. All right, so now we have a quiz. If a couple people can be guinea pigs for me and take my blank quiz. Oh, and let's make an answer key for it. There's one correct answer worth 2 points, and that is chocolate chip. All right. And now that we have a quiz coming in, we have responses coming in. I'll wait for at least one more response. One person got 100%. Fantastic, good job. We can see it by question, and we can see it by student who's taken it. Oh. Might help if we collected email addresses, huh? Because Jeremy, you wanted to see how we returned them, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So I think I need one more person to respond. Tom, you are incorrect. All right, thank you, Amanda. So I forgot to check, make sure that the email address gets collected. But after I did that, Amanda submitted hers. So now there's two ways I can release scores. I can release score from here. This is under the individual tab. And Allison also responded, so I could click send emails and release.
Are you for real?
And that will send the emails to you two. And then if I want to say, you know what? Yeah, if you don't like cookies, I'm still going to give you 1 point out of 2. Let me save that edit. And now that I've changed the scores again, I can go to the summary. And here's what it'll show me in the summary is this little clock that updates were made after I last released the score to the student. So that tells me that, you know, if I'm going ahead and regrading things, if a student was like, I think that was the right answer. Now I know that I need to return it to Allison again. And so I can click release scores, and I just want to release it to Allison.
What about short answer responses?
Grading them, making them?
Yeah.
Both?
I guess like grading and returning to the student.
So if we have a short answer question, I find it easiest when I'm grading to go through question by question. That way I can just keep in mind the rubric. Now, well, why don't I take it myself? So, oh, nice. Now I've got 2 short answer responses. Let me make sure I've got in the answer key, I've got this worth at least some points here. Let's make it worth 4 points. Now that it's worth 4 points, I'm just going to go ahead and give zeros to everyone who didn't respond. Because my mom bakes the best ones, yeah, I think that's 3 out of 4. And because Tom thinks that is absolutely the correct answer. Wow, that person is amazing. And at that point, I can hit, I better hit save. Otherwise, when new things come in, then it resets. I'd rather have tacos. Can I give negative points? That's a 0. So 1, 3, 4, people stop submitting. Okay, now I can hit save. It's saved, but if I go back to the summary, we can see that everyone has been updated. So I would have to re-release those for the kids to see them. There's one more caveat here, and that is if I go to the questions and I go to the answer key, I can actually say why, because they are best. I could have that as one of the answers, and it will automatically mark that completely correct. If I'm worried that kids are not going to capitalize appropriately, then I could do that one. If I'm worried that kids are going to use contraction, I can include that one. You can see that this can get out of hand pretty quickly. But if you have a short answer that is like 1 or 2 words, or it's a number like in math, then this can help grading. I have never clicked mark all other answers incorrect. There's too many variations. There's too many ways that kids can put spaces in there, or they can do capitalization differently. But that's an easy way to automatically mark some of the ones correct.
Cool.
And then it gives us a summary. If we go back to question, then I can make any changes that might be appropriate at this point. Anytime you make changes, make sure that you hit save.
Right.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Sean.
Absolutely. Any other questions about Classroom?
I put one in the chat, John.
If an assignment is not uploaded for a student, how can you add that assignment for that specific student? So I'm going to assume that it wasn't created for all the students to begin with. So survey just for totally awesome people. Please respond. Okay. So if I just select like all the people who are currently on, I don't know, I'm gonna do this incorrectly, so don't be mad. All right. So I selected a bunch of students and I've assigned it. Is this what you're talking about, Mia?
Yes.
So now someone else has come into the class, or I realized I needed to add someone else to this assignment. If I go to edit, I can go, oh, you know what? I totally forgot that the Sarahs were both on here, and Param and Deli and Allison. So let me go ahead, add them, and then hit save. And it will also add it for those students.
Okay, there were some students that it just says no assignment was added. So they show their, like, they're there, but their assignment is blank.
So
is that the same thing?
No, what happens sometimes is if the assignment is created and then they are added to the class, they're automatically added to that assignment, but it sometimes doesn't create any associated files with that assignment. And so they have to click create a copy because it'll show up those files in the assignment. Well, actually, for them, it will say, it'll give some error like this file wasn't created, click here to make a copy. They actually have to click there to make a copy of that file because they were late coming in. And so it didn't automatically make a copy of that file, and it's not going to until they request one.
Okay.
That's usually what ends up happening in those cases.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think there's a taco cookie in the works. Yeah.
Also, if somebody didn't, if you're putting something in there for every kid to write into, like a graphic organizer or something, and you don't make a copy for every student, then every single student has to make a copy of that, find it in their drive, and add it to that assignment. So a lot of times when a teacher doesn't make a copy for every student, it'll come up as they did something blank, or there's like nothing attached to it. Yes. And so we have to help the kids get that back in there. So it happens once in a while. I don't know if that helps with like because a lot of kids say, oh, I finished that, but it's only in their drive. It's not actually on the assignment.
That's a great point. And if you catch it early enough as a teacher, what I do is I reuse that assignment. So if I did that with this one, for example, I'm like, oh, I totally messed this up. What I meant to say is make a copy for each student, and then I'm going to reassign it, and then I'll go through and delete the old one so that they only see the new one that has a copy for each student. If you do it early enough. If you don't do it in time, what'll happen is that students will have already associated certain files with that assignment, and it won't delete those files necessarily, but it will make them do everything over again. And so you don't want to run the risk. But if you just created the assignment and you forgot to click this, make a copy for each student, then you can always just reuse. That way you don't have to recreate everything and then delete the old assignment. Thank you, Allison. All right. I wanted to move on from Google Classroom and show you really quickly those formulas in Google Sheets, unless there are more questions. All right, so in Classroom, in the Google Classroom PD, I did make an assignment here under Other Apps. It says Google Sheets Formulas Part 1. And you will have your own copy of this, assuming I did that right. Let's make sure I did that right. Yep. You will have your own copy of this sheet right here. What you'll see at the beginning is this overview. And so I stole this from a website, these links. So if my explanation doesn't work for you, if you're still not sure, or if you need a refresh, you can click on these links and they will take you to a step-by-step demonstration of how to use each of these functions. So I'm going to go over, probably I'll get through 3 or 4 of them. I might get through all 5, but I also want to be done by 2:30. So first one I'm going to go over is COUNTIF. And COUNTIF is a function that allows you to count up a certain number of items based on their values. So here I've got a bunch of students, and these are their criterion A scores for a particular assignment of some sort, a particular task. What I want to have down here is I want to have a summary. I only gave 8s, 4s, 2s, and 0s on this one. I want to know how many 8s, I want to know how many 4s, how many 2s, and how many 0s. So to do any formula in Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, we always start with the equal sign. Once you start to type the equal sign, then you have access to all sorts of different things within Google Sheets. If you just start to type a formula, it will come up with a list of different formulas that could be. So since I'm going to use the COUNTIF formula, I'll type COUNTIF, and now it has some help text to help me through how I'm going to use COUNTIF. First thing it does is put in a parenthesis. I want all of the what are called arguments within those parentheses. The first argument is going to be the range. A range in Google Sheets is a range of cells. So it could be from A2 to B9. It could be all of column A. It could be all of row 3. It could just be one cell. It could be some cells from a particular column. In this case, I want to grab just the scores from column B. So that's my range that I want to grab. And then I want some criterion. In this case, I want to check it against 8. So I'll go back into the formula here. Right now my COUNTIF says for range B2 to B9, I want to see how many of these are equal to 8. In this case, that function returns 4. So it tells me that there are 4 scores here that are 8s. Now I can go down and I can do the same thing. I can say COUNTIF, and I can grab this range, and I can say, all right, how many of them are 4? There's 3 that are 4, and I could do the same thing down here. How many of them are equal to 2? And then finally, how many are equal to 1? How many equal to 0? But you know that there's always an easier way to do things and a more efficient way to do things. You have to be careful, because in Google Sheets, you may know that you can do fills. So if you've got a bunch of dates, like 4/3/2020, and you fill down, then it'll start filling down the dates after that. You could also do this with numbers. So instead of me writing all the numbers from 1 to 20, I can just do a fill down by grabbing that little handle. You can do the same thing with formulas. So I don't have to rewrite formulas again and again. But you do have to be careful, because watch what happens if I drag this formula down. There's a couple things that are going to happen. The first one is that obviously I have to change this 8, because I'm not looking for how many are 8, I'm looking for how many are 4. The second thing is look at this range. Now the range has shifted down 1 cell. So that doesn't work. Instead, what I want to do is I want to use the $sign. The $sign fixes a particular cell. In this case, I'm going to use the $sign before the 2 and the 9. And again, this is kind of an advanced strategy here. You don't need to know this in order to be able to use Google Sheets or Excel formulas, but it becomes really helpful over time. Oh, and by the way, Allison, no, it does not work for words. But letters, yes, a sequence of letters. So I could put the $sign before the 2 and the 9, and when I do a fill down, it will actually keep that range in the same area. It will lock in that range. And so now all I have to do is say, no, I want to know how many are 4s, and I want to know how many of these are 2s, and I want to know how many of these are 0s. Okay, so that's a COUNTIF. I find this really helpful for grading, for running reports, for trying to get any sort of analysis off of data. Any other questions about COUNTIF or filling down? I think it works for letters. Oh. Huh. Oh, it just repeats, apparently. I thought it was going to continue the sequence, but no, it'll just repeat if I do a fill down. All right. Next one is concatenate, and this can be really helpful for making progress reports. So if I've got these 4 students and I want to send home to parents a summary of how they're doing in words, Obviously, I could just report to them the criteria grades, or I can make a summary. I don't know, Tom. Are you talking about for the formula, Tom? Let's find out. That didn't work. Doesn't like to do that. If you find a shortcut for doing that, let me know. All right, going back to concatenate, and then we'll be done for today. The concatenate function, what it does is it adds strings to each other. So it adds all sorts of different messages that you want together. So I could say something like, your student, and then, so I put that in quotes, what I want to have output. And then I put a comma. I separate every string that I want with a comma. Your student, George Washington, currently has a, and then I put a comma, and then the grade in American history. So now, this summary I can fill down, and it automatically turns into words what I have in my Google Sheet. So now every single student, they've got this blurb. And if I wanted to get really sophisticated with this, I could then say, for their Criterion A grade, they are currently earning a, boom. What did I do? Okay. And let me word wrap so that we can see this. So concatenate allows me to take all this data and turn it into a written blurb, making writing things like progress reports really easy, especially if I have other data in there other than just criteria grades. Okay. Any other questions? I'll save the rest of this for another time. That's not how I do it, Amanda. It's actually magic. Yeah, great. Okay, stay healthy, stay safe. See you around.
See you guys.